What is good, everyone? It is your guy, Don James, and welcome back to another ranking. So, I was planning to make this video in the expectation that Despicable Me 4 would pass the $1 billion mark. Well, that plan failed. So unfortunately, here I am giving an overdue ranking that the YouTube algorithm will probably cast into irrelevance because no one even remembers the plot of Despicable Me 4. See, you already forgot this guy's name, as well as his motives. Anyways, here's my ranking of all 6 Despicable Me and Minions movies. When I think of the most disappointing, saddening film that I ever watched, I think of Cars 2. Oh, but Minions would be second. As a dumb kid, when I initially heard this movie was coming out, I was extremely excited, thinking that a movie centered around my favorite characters would be a great idea.
He's wrong. He's wrong.
This movie is just so chaotic and just downright stupid. So the movie opens with a pack of minions who evolved from the ocean and are constantly in search of being led by someone but can't stop killing their leaders. So they send out 3 minions by the names of Stuart, Kevin, and as they journey out to find a new leader. Then they run into a family that takes them to Villain Con, which actually was pretty solid. But somehow we go from Villain Con to how in the world did we go from Villain Con and the minions coming under the leadership of this female supervillain to this little nugget becoming the King of England? To be honest, the beginning of the film wasn't actually too bad. It's kind of funny how callous this movie is towards death compared to your average kids film, especially this part.
As you can see, I don't need any help. Oh, way to go, guys. We killed the original.
But man, this movie just goes off the rails in the middle act. And then we just get Kaiju Kevin battling Scarlet Overkill. And then we just get Gru in England for some reason. Movie over. So yeah, with a more adult brain to think about it, this movie definitely had a very cynical core by taking these shallow side characters that mainly speak gibberish and making them the main characters. So yeah, this is definitely like Illumination's cruddiest movie. But to be honest, I don't even think this is like a bad film necessarily, I just think it's extremely mediocre. It's mostly pretty dull and forgettable and not all that funny, but it does still have some pretty solid moments. So, after the disappointment of Minions, I was looking forward to going back to Gru being the anchor of this story.
He's wrong. He's wrong.
For some reason, I don't stop to consider the bad premises that some of these movies take on. Like, this movie almost has a bottom-of-the-barrel premise, where Gru just suddenly meets his long-lost brother, who lives in his father's mansion, who, by the way, was one of the greatest villains of all time, that Gru just happened to have never heard about. I mean, even with that premise, this movie still did have some potential. Like, you have hyper retro villain voiced by South Park guy, which could pair well with Gru trying to teach his brother how to be a villain through stealing one of the diamonds back. But it didn't work. For starters, Gru didn't get fired because he wasn't able to retrieve the diamond. He got fired because he wasn't able to capture Balthazar Brat. So how would retrieving the diamond change his status at all? It's like the movie kind of forgot their own premise, and it was easily fixable. Just have him fail at retrieving the diamond at the beginning. On top of that, this movie spends way too much time focusing on subplots with Gru's family. Like, the whole unicorn thing was extremely silly and boring, and I literally forgot this stupid kid was even in this movie. And I've seen it like 3 times. But hey, this kid did try to propose to Margot after She did a cheese dance with him. Isn't that funny? Also, the treatment of the Minions was criminal.
I understood that reference.
So much of the pre-release marketing for this movie depicted the Minions going to jail, which seemed like such an interesting concept. And guess how long they actually spend in jail? 3 minutes.
What?
3 minutes. But hey, the Freedom Song did slap. On top of that, near the end of the film, Gru and Drew had some predictable fallout moment that was more funny than sad. And that got resolved in 4 minutes. I'm not even joking. It's like this movie didn't pace itself properly and had way too many stupid subplots that it had to rush through more interesting aspects of the story. But I will say the final twist with the villain disguising as Gru's wife.
Eyebrows. Ow! Yeah!
We're going to Hollywood! Now that's what I call acting!
That was hilarious, and that also threw me off guard every single time that I've seen this movie. I honestly wish they had more time with this villain. Like, his disguises and his overall persona was so much more interesting than most of the stuff in this movie. But hey, this isn't a terrible movie or anything. It still has some entertaining enough action and enough funny moments. And unlike the Minions film, when the Minions do appear in this movie, it's actually pretty good. But the story is just too messy, and what you end up getting is a mediocre film. Yep, the most recent one is at number 4. It almost feels like Despicable Me 4 is the most autopiloted movie in this franchise. Like, it's just a series of random subplots and gags until something just kind of happens at the end of the movie to give closure. I mean, if you try to summarize the plot, it's like Gru arrests the main villain of the story, who I don't even really remember his name, so I'll just call him Cockroach Guy. Cockroach Guy escapes and threatens to kill Gru, so he leaves with his family to a safe house, and then his next door neighbors just have a daughter that wants to steal a mascot from Gru's old school, and then his wife is a bad hairstylist, and then the Minions drain the powers of Marvel superheroes in order to try stopping Cockroach Guy, who, by the way, is busy snorting cockroaches in the sewers or something, until a giant cockroach emerges into the city. Big boss battle, the end. Oh yeah, and final dance number where Gru and Cockroach Guy perform a duet while they bring back every character from this franchise. The end. This Cockroach Guy and his flat wife are easily the weakest villains in the entire franchise. To be honest, this movie probably has an even more unfocused story than Despicable Me 3. But let's be honest, you're not going to a Despicable Me film for the story. You're going for the humor, and I would say Despicable Me 4 has better humor than the third one. We don't have an obnoxious brat with Drew anymore. The Minions are utilized a lot more, and the superpower gimmick that headlined a lot of the marketing for them was definitely better utilized and handled than the prison stuff. Oh yeah, Gru and Lucy also get a baby, and he's fine. So in general, I think this is a passable, good enough film. Would I put it in the top 5 for 2024 movies? No. Would I rush to rewatch it? Probably not. It's a serviceable enough film, but not a great film. But hey, Illumination has essentially mastered making this type of movie. Not nearly as good as the trailers make you want to believe, but not horrible either. Despicable Me 2 is solid. On the surface, these movies really have nowhere to go after the first one. Like, the first movie was all about a villainous character having to learn and change to become a good guy. Hence the title, Despicable Me. So, I mean, where are you supposed to go after that? Gru's already a good guy. So what would the second movie be about? Gru getting a job at Bob Parr's insurance agency? By the way, how cool would it be if the Incredibles faced off against supervillain Gru? Like, that probably would have been a very tense battle with the Parr family against Gru and... Never mind, Gru would get killed immediately. Anyways, this movie took a smart route by introducing Lucy and the Anti-Villain League. The Anti-Villain League still allowed for Gru to explore the criminal underworld and allowed for some fun zany action and goofy gadgets. And adding in Lucy was also a smart idea because it's a logical follow-up to the first film's character dynamics. Like, the first movie ends with Gru basically being a single dad of these orphan girls. So by adding in Lucy, it challenged Gru to get out of his comfort zone and talk to women, while also allowing the girls to grow up in a two-parent household with a mother and father. And that is great. Also, Lucy was the perfect type of character to pair with Gru. I mean, when you look at Gru, there's no way you would ever think someone like him would land a woman like Jessica Rabbit. So instead, they pair Gru with an ugly-looking pen. But seriously, in a lot of ways, Lucy is a copy and paste of Lola Bunny from the Looney Tunes show. A quirky cartoon female voiced by Kristen Wiig. But Lucy's personality allows her to be a perfect counter to Gru's kind of grumpy and serious nature. The villain for the first two acts is also pretty great, and his dancing is just pretty hilarious. And his son's dance-off with Gru is also a highlight of the film. I mean, I'd probably just say the two weak points are that turning the minions into these purple monsters probably wasn't the best choice. I mean, it took away from a lot of their charm and their endearing humor. And it doesn't get replaced with anything better because the minions don't do anything in the third act besides get antidoted. Which is the other problem with this movie, that this whole purple substance thing doesn't really come into play at all in the third act. The minions immediately get healed, and then the main villain takes the purple substance for himself, only to get defeated in like 1 minute by like a fart gun. But still, quite a step up from the fourth movie on this list. Also, this movie did give us Happy. Yeah, I would hear that song all the time when I was in the 5th grade. Of all of the Illumination movies, this is definitely the one that surprised me the most. I was not looking forward to this movie at all. I was already disappointed enough by Minions, so a sequel is not really getting me that excited anyway. Plus, I didn't like the third movie, so it just felt like this franchise had run its course. And then I watch it, and then it ends up being one of Illumination's best movies. The introduction of Gru really was a game changer for this spin-off franchise. It provided the needed anchor for the Minions' hijinks and hilarity. So rather than Kevin, Stewart, and being on their own and getting crappy moments like this, you could instead get funny moments like this.
No, guys, come on. Hey, I got the image to uphold here.
The prequel setting also allowed for this franchise to go back to its original roots, which was all about creative supervillain underworlds. And by having Gru be a child, you can have him return to that without detracting from his character growth. It also allowed for some nice references to the original movie, such as seeing a younger Dr. Nefario, and a nice little reference to Despicable Me's intro, where instead of Gru using a freeze ray, he uses a cheese ray. Ha, get it? Gru is essentially Dr. Grufenschmerz, so instead of his inventions being innators, his inventions are eases. Ha. It's not funny. The Vicious Six were also a great cast of villains. Nunchuck was a clever pun, Wild Knuckles had a nice relation with Gru, and Bell Bottom was a great leader. And my goodness, is her hair perfection! I've been trying to figure out how to get my hair into an afro for a while now, Please teach me! I would say I don't think this movie is as funny as Despicable Me 2. Plus, I always found Otto's retrieval of the Zodiac Stone to be a little confusing. But this was a pleasant surprise from Illumination. Despite the Despicable Me franchise being the highest grossing animated franchise of all time, I still feel like Despicable Me doesn't get talked about enough. The intro is phenomenal with its world building and the very memorable song. Love or hate them, the Minions are globally iconic, and they are hilarious in this movie. The story is heartwarming. The three girls, especially Agnes, are endearing. And of course you have
Vector. Oh yeah!
I literally remember when I was in my middle school science class, we were learning the basics about the laws of physics or something, and my teacher pulled up a clip from this movie to teach us what vectors were.
It's a mathematical term, a quantity represented by an arrow with both direction and magnitude.
So this movie was literally giving science lessons. And on top of that, this was Illumination's debut movie. Like, compared to most of the first movies from top animation studios, I really think that Despicable Me is better than pretty much all of them. Definitely not Toy Story though. So yeah, I really don't have much more to say about this. I really think this is one of the best animated films of all time, to be honest. Maybe some of that is nostalgia, but I absolutely love this movie's premise, its characters, its humor, its villain, and its heart. The voice acting is also phenomenal, especially from Steve Carell. And I love how this movie is just able to function as a CGI film version of a Saturday morning cartoon. It's just allowed to be zany, lighthearted, charming, and fun, without having to worry about being like the deepest or most complex kids movie. So easily by a long shot, Despicable Me comes out on top. But that is the video. Thank you for watching, for those of you that did. Be sure to check out another ranking on my channel. Most of my rankings are within the YouTube shorts, but I did make a Pixar sequel ranking. So check that out if you haven't already. And thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.